Niranjan, I want to bring you in here because India imports about 80% of its energy needs. And at this point, nearly half of crude oil imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz, where we've seen the blockade. Do you think when we talk to America at this point, that energy partnership, what do we do with the crude oil, that is going to hold the basis, perhaps one of the most significant discussions that could happen here compared to other issues? Which other issue do you think would be possibly part of the agenda here that India will want to place on a higher priority?
There are several issues, I think, and energy security or energy deal with the US will be one of them. But I think beyond, energy cooperation, I would think, and I do hope that India brings up the issue of Strait of Hormuz, because, energy trade and energy flowing through Strait of Hormuz is one part. But overall, I think India would be looking at a bigger picture where we have, diversification of supply chains. We have open sea lanes of communication, and there is a flow of trade, not just energy, not just oil and gas. So I think India would be hoping to discuss these issues with the US. That would be one of the important issues, according to me. Further, Marco Rubio also spoke about the Indo-Pacific and the Quad summit that is going to take place tomorrow. Again, I think here India will need to, India will need to emphasize on what exactly is the relevance and role of the Quad, particularly in the current global order. Because when the Quad was taking shape, when it was being formed, India's view has always been that Quad is a platform not just for defense cooperation, or it's not a military alliance as US wanted it to see, but it is a platform for economic cooperation, for supply chains, for other issues such as climate change and cooperation in the areas of health. So it's a multidimensional platform, and I think the Quad members would do well to follow India's vision about the grouping. If they have to, together they have to play an important role in the current world order. But most important part, according to me, would be, diversification of supply chains and opening up of the trade routes. That, according to me, would hold the key.
And that's fair. That's fair. Of course, trade cooperation has to be, considering India and US has that relationship and it's seen its ups and downs. It's going to be important how trade specifically comes into the picture as well. I want to bring in Niranjan here. Niranjan, as we look at this statement of trying to solve issue in a diplomatic way, inviting Prime Minister Modi to the White House, we can only look back at those days when, of course, there were tensions vis-a-vis Prime Minister Modi, that he wasn't allowed when it came to the USA. And now the invitations that are coming in consistently from Marco Rubio, he's invited him that the next visit should be in the White House. How do you think that has changed for Prime Minister Modi, for India-USA relationship?
I think India is an important strategic partner of the US, and US does understand that. But then again, it has its own interests. It has its own policy to follow with different partners and with different countries. So I think India would also need to work around that, just like India has maintained its stand of cooperating with Russia, even against United States and several Western countries' wishes. So India continues to engage with Russia. Similarly, US has its own engagements, whether we have seen it with China or other countries, even Pakistan. But then I think after Donald Trump's not so successful visit to China, now I think US is again reaching out to India and, in the hope of repairing or resetting the ties that were bit, disrupted in between because of the war against Iran and US going with Pakistan. But then again, I think here, I would like to continue from my previous point. I mentioned trade and the supply chains. So I think India does hold a leverage here because, among all the other agreements, US is very keen to have a trade deal with India. Just like India concluded trade deal with several countries recently with New Zealand, and India is in talks with European Union as well, the Gulf Cooperation Council as well. So US is very keen to have a trade deal with India. I think that is India's one of the most important leverages to have in
The
talks with the
Secretary of State
US.
here saying India is an incredibly important partner of America. We are going to make important announcements in coming months to further solidify the ties. Do you think amid all of these issues, I would say that one of the strongest when it comes to the relationship between the two countries, it looks like it could be the West Asia war, but eventually it will be trade. It will be about how India can benefit from the imports, the exports that come in, and especially when it comes to West Asia, the oil discount that we can get.
Definitely, trade would feature prominently, and trade would be the most important issue when the two sides are talking to each other. And particularly, energy and non-energy trade both, I think, would be on India's agenda while holding these discussions with the United States. As far as West Asia is concerned, yes, India's interests in West Asia are mostly energy related, but I would like to say it is also about disruption of all these supply routes that I think India should focus more at this point of time, because yes, I believe energy is important, and particularly now we are facing the fuel price hike. It is important to have a number of sources. But the thing is, as long as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, or the conflict continues, there are going to be disruptions in energy supply. Besides, India has its own interests in the Middle East, particularly I would say
Yes,
with respect
correct.
to connectivity projects. One is IMEC, India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, and other is International North-South Transit Corridor. So, which are both important for India's trade relations, not with just Middle East, but also with the European countries, the Western countries. So, I believe, when India and US talk about West Asia, it's not just the bilateral talk, or it's not just about protecting India's interests, but US and European countries also have,
Niranjan, yes.
economic interests in these,
Both nations do, and
lasting
both
peace in
nations are
Hormuz.
focusing on their domestic
Yes.
interests, and especially as Trump will possibly want to look at how that means for his political future. Ambassador Dogra, we haven't discussed this yet, and I don't want to miss that opportunity. Just a few weeks ago, we had literally the whole delegation from America landing in our neighbor nation, Pakistan. Donald Trump has been in China. So it's not that India currently is a top priority friend. We know how US is also exploring their relationship with our two neighbors who we have been facing hostilities with. So how do you think at that point, therefore, India must know that while we are repairing this relationship, we need to be very careful of how America is pushing with it too?
Pooja, you answered your own question. We have to be very careful. We have to be very cautious, because history tells us to be cautious as far as America and America's Pakistan relationship is concerned. Even America's China relationship has affected India in a negative sense. It is only now, after the rebuff in China by Xi, that America has decided that maybe it might not be a bad idea to send Rubio to India. After all, Quad was not something which was high on America's priority list. India had sent out invitation, but America was not interested. Only now America has shown interest.
This is about continuing to build on what is already a very solid, strong strategic partnership. Niranjan, how do you look at these words? Already a very solid, strong strategic partnership.
I think what Marco Rubio is trying to say, in a way, he has acknowledged that there have been some issues, there have been some, roadblocks in the India-US relations, and now they are just, they will look forward to continue building upon what is already a very strong strategic partnership. Yes, India-US does have a very strong strategic partnership. The two countries are very close partners in the domains of defense and economy. But then again, both the countries will also have to sort out the issues. Particularly, I would say for India, when we talk about West Asia, in specific, Iran is an issue that both the countries need to sort out, because India-Iran relations have for a long time, have depended upon how India's relations with the US are. So if India has to, address its energy security, if it has to increase its sources of energy imports, then I think Iran would also be a major partner for India in the future, because
Okay.
India stopped buying oil from Iran in 2019. So I think there are, like he said, there is a lot of work to do. So yes, there are a lot of things which both the countries they need to discuss
Stay
and
on with me,
sort
and,
out
and
if they
thank
want
you
to.
for all the updates,
Yes.
Niranjan, that with your expertise that you've been bringing.